It is Tuesday, November 2nd, 7 p.m. here in Washington, D.C., and I'd like to welcome you to tonight's edition of Nation's Pastime in the nation's capital, WCUA's only baseball-centric talk show. I'm your host, Andrew Snaith, and here with my co-hosts James Higgins and Robbie Cruz as usual, and as always, we're going to be breaking down the latest in the baseball world. But first, thank you all so much for tuning in. We are live every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on WCUA Radio, and our shows are posted after in podcast form on YouTube the day after, and Spotify the Friday after is what we've been told by the WCUA podcasting group. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened in about 3 weeks, so not really sure what's going up with that, so stick to YouTube for now, and we'll let you know when Spotify's up and going for our shows in podcast form. Go ahead, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, mainly Instagram, at @PastimeCap for updates on the show and notifications of when those episodes are posted. And general news as well. We've had James here who has been doing postseason recaps of every game the day after. It's been great. So definitely follow us there for some more content. And if you want to call in at all during tonight's show to talk about the World Series or anything baseball related, that number is 202-319-5106, 202-319-5106. And as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about the World Series tonight. Game 6 is going to get underway at 8 p.m. between the Atlanta Braves and Houston Astros, of course, as well. But before we get into that, there was some breaking news this week, not World Series or postseason related, that I think we want to talk about. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. And the breaking news that I'm thinking about is it is James Higgins' birthday today. Happy birthday, James.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That was not the breaking news I was talking about, that I was thinking about. We'll get into that later, but I appreciate the birthday well wishes from the crew. I couldn't ask for a better birthday gift than Game 6 of the World Series. Unfortunately, the Red Sox didn't make it this far, but still an exciting night of baseball lies ahead.
Absolutely. Happy birthday, James. And I don't know. I think that was the breaking news, right, guys?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that's the best news that we've heard all day.
That's the best news. And with that, that's been another edition of Nation's No, I'm just kidding, guys. But no, we did have a pretty surprising piece of news that broke last week. And that was, of course, that the Padres found their manager. We're going to touch on this briefly before we get into the postseason World Series discussion, because I think it's very significant the fact that the Oakland Athletics just let Bob Melvin walk an interview for this San Diego job.
Absolutely. Bob Melvin is one of the most respected managers in the game of baseball. Melvin has been around with the Oakland Athletics since I think like 2013. 2007?
Yeah.
Oh my
it's been
goodness.
a while.
Yeah. So he's been managing the Athletics since 2007?
Yeah, I'll get it right.
Okay,
now.
so James will get it right. He's looking it up. But the point is, Melvin is one of the most respected managers. He's been around for a really long time, and he's a guy that's known for bringing clubhouses together. And I think that's going to be beneficial for the San Diego Padres, because we all know that one of their big issues this year was, some chemistry issues, but also guys just weren't stepping up, and they had some injuries. And Melvin's a guy who is just known as a great manager, and I think that this is the perfect guy for the San Diego Padres. This was the guy that they needed, and I think that he's a much better manager than Jace Tingler ever was, because I didn't think Jace Tingler was a good manager at all. I never liked him.
Yeah, Melvin's a 3-time manager of the year, and he's been managing Oakland since 2011. But he was the manager of Arizona from 05 to 09. He's a 3-time manager of the year, most recently winning in 2018 with the A's 97-win season there. But he's, again, one of the most respected managers in the game, like Robbie said. He's a true leader. He brings clubhouses together. He gets the most out of his teams. His teams are usually gritty and very scrappy. And now that he has superstars, I think you can extrapolate that grit and scrappiness even more so, because you have stars like Tatis and Manny Machado that will go out there, that will grind for you every day. And look, Melvin can get teams that are projected to win 70 to 75 games to win 90, to win 95, to be in the wild card hunt. Just imagine what he can do with a GM who will actually spend money and a team that is actually projected to win 95 games. I'm excited to see what he can do, because he's a great leader, and hopefully he can get the Padres to a World Series.
Yeah, there's no question that the talent is there for San Diego. Of course, a very disappointing year, and a lot of people thought had to do with Jace Tingler as the manager there. So this could be something that really pushes them into a deep postseason talk for next year, because there's no question that they're a talented team. But my question for you guys is, what is going on with Oakland here? Why the heck would they let him just take this interview and then just walk with nothing?
I don't think letting him go makes any sense. Like I think from their perspective, they probably thought he gave us 10 years here. Why not let him go? Pursue other options, but getting nothing back from one of the best managers in the game makes zero sense. I think you have to look at it and, from Oakland's perspective, they're going to go through a rebuild. They're not going to be paying, Matt Chapman, Matt Olson. They're not going to be paying all these guys big money on long-term deals. How many of them will they pay? nobody is entirely sure, but they have a laundry list of free agents. It's a very long list, starting with, Matt Chapman going into year 2 or 3 of arbitration, Matt Olson entering his first year of arbitration. A lot of guys are due very big paydays, and Oakland has never been about that model. So we'll see if they'll finally shell out some cash and back up the Brinks trucks for 2 of the better players in the game, or if they let them go and really restart the rebuild.
Yeah, very surprising. I think, like you said, just they got absolutely nothing back for him, and it is a little puzzling. I guess it's more of like a respect thing, like James said. He gave us 10 years. We should let him take this opportunity. But I feel like if you really did respect him and understand that the impact that he had on the Oakland Athletics, you would have at least made him an offer or something or give him a reason to stay. But it's crazy how fast it went. I mean, we heard the report that he was interviewing, and it seemed like almost instantly he got the job. Yeah,
and it's no surprise because, like we said, he's one of the most respected managers in baseball. Now, I thought that what the Athletics could have done is what the Blue Jays did with John Farrell.
Right.
What if they somehow traded him to the Padres? Get something in return for him because he was under contract for another year, wasn't he?
Yeah, and that's what I thought. I mean, I feel like the Padres would have traded something to get him if they wanted him that badly.
Yeah. You would have gotten something for him, and I think it would have been respectful to him if he told the Oakland Athletics, I want to go to the Padres. I think they would have respected his wishes. So I do think it's a bit puzzling from the Athletics standpoint, but I personally think that there's something deeper with the Athletics. Personally, I think the Oakland Athletics are going to blow it up this offseason. I think that they're going to make a lot of moves, and I think that this was just the beginning of the fire. I could see them trading away Matt Olson. Matt Chapman, I think, is a bit of a longer shot, but maybe Ramon Laureano, maybe look at Lou Trevino. Those guys could get traded. There's no reason why not to think so. They're probably going to lose some veteran free agent relievers, so I think the Athletics are going to be, they got a big change coming soon.
Team to watch in the offseason for sure. And starting next week, we're going to be launching into a huge discussion about that until about March, I would say. So plenty of time to do that. Let's go ahead and talk about the World Series.
Well, maybe even further if things don't pick up by March.
Don't say that, James.
I don't want to say
We don't want to think about that, but you are very right indeed. We don't know when baseball is going to start due to the CBA, but let's keep our fingers crossed for a late March, early April start still, for sure. But hey, you know what? We don't have to worry about that yet because we have at least one more night, maybe 2 nights of baseball left. Of course, the World Series between the Braves and Astros about to get underway from Minute Maid Park in Houston. Luis Garcia versus Max Fried should be a fantastic Game 6. The Braves really looking good in this series, and last night the Astros managed to send it back home. They got 2 more chances to try to get this done. The Braves just looking for a single win. And guys, what's the big focus, in your opinion, on tonight's game? The keys for each team. Why don't we start with the Astros, who are at a disadvantage?
So, what, did you say the Astros at a disadvantage?
Yeah, they got to win 2 games.
Yeah.
I mean, they are at home. They do have home field advantage tonight, which I think will come a long way. But for one, I think Luis Garcia has to be better than he has been this postseason. He's been inconsistent. I mean, I know he was really bad against the Red Sox, but I think when he pitched earlier,
he was really good against them.
Yeah, he was really good against the Red Sox.
He had a bad start. He had 1 bad start against the Red Sox with the fake injury, and then in Game 6 he pitched really well.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and then how did he do earlier in the World Series?
They won Game 2. He pitched fine. I mean, Fried did not pitch well in game. He pitched Game 3. He pitched all right in Game 3.
Yeah.
Fried pitched in Game 2 and did not pitch well.
Well, my big thing was that I think Garcia has to be better than his numbers show. The Astros lineup has to pick up what they were able to do last game. Oh, they only scored 2 runs, so I guess it wasn't like a complete blowout. But as long as the Astros are able to score runs, as long as Luis Garcia can pitch pretty well, I think they're going to be fine. And I think the big thing for Garcia is he has to just find a way to slow down the certain bats in the Braves lineup because they've been hitting just fine. I just think that last game was a bit of a fluke. I don't think that the Braves are going to score 0 every single time. They're a legitimate offense.
In terms of Atlanta, I think the biggest key is getting Max Fried right.
Yeah,
because he's proven that he's a big difference maker, and he's had tremendous starts this postseason. He pitched well against Milwaukee in the LDS, but again, Game 2 against Houston, everything that could go wrong went wrong. Defense didn't play well behind him. He was leaving pitches up in the zone. He was hanging breaking balls. He wasn't locating his fastball. Everything that could go wrong went wrong for Fried, and those fortunes need to reverse themselves tonight. Max Fried needs to go out. He needs to pick up the slack for Charlie Morton. Obviously, it's no fault of Charlie Morton that he's out, but Atlanta needs good Max Fried tonight. And when he's on, he's one of the better pitchers in the game. But when he's off, things can get ugly and go off the train tracks really fast. So, I think Obviously everything is in the book for Houston tonight. Everyone's available, but I think Atlanta could be in that same position if they're up. If they're up late in the game, the one thing that worries me about Atlanta is that Houston has seen their bullpen so much, and you started to see this in Game 5 when you get multiple looks at guys in a short condensed series, you start to hit them. Will AJ Minter's magic run out? I don't know. It hasn't run out yet. He's been tremendous. He could be in consideration for World Series MVP with the way he's pitched. But if Atlanta has a position to win tonight, why not have Ian Anderson go out there for an inning?
Yeah,
they haven't got a hit off him in the series. I know he's your Game 7 starter, but if you're up 4-2 in the 8th inning and you want to solidify that one inning before you get to Smith to close out the ball game, why not go to Anderson if Matzik has already been burned? You just never know what could come up. Atlanta shouldn't just straight up save Anderson for tomorrow if the situation arises. You got to win tonight because if Houston wins tonight, they're going to have all the momentum. It's going to be very hard for them to win Game 7.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to go back to what I said about the Astros because I got the score completely wrong. So
mixed up the games.
Yeah, I mixed up the games. That was my bad. But, okay, so James is right in everything he says. Now, I think that the Astros, I think they need a good start from Luis Garcia. But for the Braves, they definitely, don't want to use the bullpen too much because the Astros have seen their bullpen, and they've hit the bullpen pretty well. So I think that's going to be a big factor. I do expect – you know what? I think Yordan Alvarez is going to have a big game today, though.
Okay.
He's hitting .063 in the World Series. I think he's due for a big hit, and I think that big hit is going to come up today.
Yeah, he's cooled off tremendously. And, speaking of that Game 5 that happened 2 nights ago, I mean, it really seemed like the Astros finally awoke, and, the offense finally woke up. And, honestly, it's going to need to stay awake if they're going to pull off this comeback because they just looked absolutely miserable in some of those games beforehand.
And they've shown that they can come back from being down behind. They did against the Red Sox, and, honestly, the offense just seems to step up when they're most under pressure, and this is just a team that thrives when times are tough, and I think that's going to be a big factor, and I honestly think they're going to win tonight.
Also, something to note, this could be the last game of those 4 Astros infielders of them playing together, and that is an iconic group that has been through some unbelievable postseason runs and put up some crazy numbers since 2017.
Their core 4 has played more postseason games together than any 4 teammates in the history of Major League Baseball.
And I believe that just edged out the one with Tino, Jeter, and all them.
They just did edge it out this postseason. Yeah. With Correa possibly departing this offseason, this could be it. They obviously have unfinished business and want to go out on top, but regardless, they've accomplished a lot together, and we'll see what happens tonight. The big thing for Houston, the changes in the batting order the changes in the batting order worked. Bregman alluded to this on MLB Network today, that his top hand apparently has been terrible this series. He actually did something productive for once in Game 5. They need, as Robbie said, they need Alvarez, and of course they need Bregman. Those 2 guys really need to step up and pick up the slack because Altuve and Correa have done their part, to a better, not to a great extent with Altuve, but to a better extent than these 2. Bregman and Alvarez need to have 2 big games. The Astros are going to win this whole thing because as the Stars go, the Astros go.
Without question. I mean, like Robbie said, Alvarez has essentially just cooled off to nothing. You have Bregman, who has done, like you said, literally the first productive thing he's done the entire series in Game 5. And then Altuve seems to be the only one who's really hitting.
Yeah, Correa too.
Correa as well, yeah.
Well, it's also been a lot. The bottom part of the lineup has been fine. Tucker's been good. Yeah. Gurriel's been good.
Maldonado, some clutch hits.
Maldonado's had some clutch hits. And then you obviously got Michael Brantley, who always seems to get base hits. Altuve, he's only hitting .217, but it seems like he hits whenever, moments are the most tense.
He gets big hits.
Yeah, he gets the biggest hits, it seems like. And Correa, even though he may be hitting .263, James is right. The guy comes up with really big hits, and he's still really good defensively.
Yeah, he plays elite defense. Alex Bregman's hitting .111 in the series. And I know we talked about Alvarez's average. Tucker's getting the job done. He's been arguably the best hitter in the American League since May 1st. He's hitting .333. But Bregman hitting .111 is not going to get it done. And I said going into the series that he was going to need to be the one who needed to step up if Houston was going to win this whole thing. Bregman has been terrible. And if Houston, as the Stars go, Houston goes. Bregman needs to step up. He needs to, if Houston's going to win, he needs to get to Max Fried tonight. He's proven he can perform on the big stage. I'm not sure what's up with him right now, but that's the biggest key for Houston. Get Alvarez and Bregman going.
I really think that the Astros are going to be able to hit tonight, though. For some reason, they've hit lefties really well. I know that they have a lot of right-handed bats in the lineup, a lot of bats that hit lefties really well. And I think that they're going to be able to hit Max Fried just fine. Personally, that's just a hot take.
Yeah, speaking of the big hit, by the way, something we say, Altuve does that a lot. Some of the guys on the Astros do that a lot, right? How about the Braves, though, and their knack for the timely home run? Because this is something that I mentioned, I believe it was back in September when we started the show, and it was still the regular season. They rebuilt themselves at the All-Star break to be a team that does this, and they have done this since August, is winning games with these timely solo home runs, and that's just how they do it, and it's worked really well so far.
I mean, Game 4 is the perfect example. It's a microcosm of their season. Dansby Swanson and Jorge Soler going back-to-back. To get them that win. Sometimes that's how you have to win games. I mean, living and dying by the home run isn't necessarily a good thing in baseball, but it's worked for Atlanta so far this postseason, and the majority of the second half, not only with home runs but clutch hits. And you can't really argue with how they performed. Obviously, they're one win away from the World Series. Going back to the big, clutch hits and home runs. I mean, if Atlanta wins this series, who do you guys have tabbed down for World Series MVP? I mean, I think there's a lot of guys that you can really consider and think about. And I'll just run through the options, and then we can all give our our takes. But Jorge Soler, he's hitting 294. He's got two huge home runs this series, especially the one in Game 4. Freddie Freeman's hitting 278. He had the big home run in game 5. He hit the home run in Game 5, but he's been steady overall. Austin Riley's hitting 381 in the series. I'm not sure. Let me see how many RBIs he has in the series. He has 8 RBIs this postseason. I believe he has 3 in this World Series. Dansby Swanson's only hitting 188, but look at if he had another big hit tonight, right, you could peg the two together and really combine that for World Series MVP honors. Travis d'Arnaud hitting 350, the grand slam in Game 5, and then the home run in Game 3. I mean, I think there's a lot. You could even throw Eddie Rosario's name in the ring. I know he's only hitting 278, but that catch that he made in Game 4 was unbelievable. They've had a lot of guys do it all. And then from the pitching side, what about Ian Anderson or Tyler Matzik? Right, I think Matzik might be my pick. He's been unbelievable for them. Now, if it goes to Game 7 and Ian Anderson shoves again and they win, you got to give it to Anderson. I think.
I think we're at a situation where it's going to have to be whoever steps up. Of those guys you mentioned, whichever one steps up,
they've all performed well.
Right. Whoever steps up to the next level and is the reason they win either tonight or in a possible Game 7, that's probably what's going to give them the edge. As it stands now, Matzik might be my pick, but other than that, if I have to choose a hitter, Soler, man.
Yeah,
Soler's been huge.
Another hitter though. He's only hitting 200, but Adam Duvall has had a couple tremendous.
Hit a grand slam last game too.
Honestly,
if I had to pick a hitter, I gotta go with Austin Riley though. I mean, the fact that he's hitting 381, he's had several clutch hits and he's driven runs in when he's needed to. In terms of pitching though, I don't know. To me, it's got to be Austin Riley. I think he's had too great of an impact on the series, and he's played some good defense too. So I would go with Austin Riley.
Yeah, how about that play where he prevented the double?
That was a huge play. Down the third, he's a tremendous defender. Somebody that I don't think gets enough credit.
By the way, someone who really wasn't when he came up either.
Correct, and he's cut down his strikeouts. He's really become a complete hitter. And I remember in May we gave our breakout predictions, and the guy who I zeroed in on was Austin Riley. I just thought, you saw flashes of it, but now now that he's putting it together, he is a legit MVP candidate year in, year out if he can continue this. If the series was ending right now, I would pick Austin Riley, but I think I think Freddie Freeman is going to come up with the big moment. He's Mr. Brave. This seems like the moment's going to come to Freddie, and he's going to seize it and take advantage. I think it's going to come down between Reilly, Freeman, and Tyler Matzik. You look at the body of work that Tyler Matzik has done. I mean, how can you not give it to him? I think the other pitcher you could consider, A.J. Minter, has been tremendous out of the bullpen. I know he's come in earlier in games, but he has been phenomenal this whole series.
I think A.J. Minter is a good name. It's just he had such a bad outing last game. I mean, I think that raised his World Series ERA to 7.71. I mean, to me, he's been great, but I can't see it going to A.J. Minter personally. I mean, I think it'll either be Matzik or Riley, but I'm still sticking with Riley just because of the defense, the clutch hits, and the fact that he's hitting 381.
Yeah, completely fair. I mean, like James said, there's a lot of options if the Braves end up winning it. I mean, you have so many guys who have done the little things that have helped them win 3 games thus far, but I think it does come down to whoever contributes to either a win tonight or a potential win in a Game 7.
And now, on the other side, if it's
I was just going to say, why don't we talk about Houston now?
I think, this might surprise a lot of people. But I think it's going to be Kyle Tucker.
No, that doesn't surprise me. That was my pick.
If Houston does end up winning.
Yeah.
You could obviously, say Brantley's probably been their most consistent hitter all season and postseason, but I think Tucker has been their best since May 1st, and I know they can be similar, but I think Tucker, he's been their most consistent hitter all postseason. He shows up, he hits, he'll hit. He can hit first, he can hit ninth, he can hit anywhere in between. He's come up with some big hits this series. I see it continuing. If Houston wins the series, I think Tucker's going to take home MVP.
Hey, let's not forget their pinch hitter batting 1,000, Mr. Zach Greinke, potential as well. No, I'm just kidding there, of course. But hey, how about Zach Greinke with
Shout out first pitcher since Babe Ruth to hit above ninth in a postseason game. When he started, he was hitting eighth, and then the first pitcher to get a pinch hit, base hit in a postseason game, in a World Series game.
Hey, you gotta love it, especially because it's something we probably will never be seeing again. So very cool that we have a guy like Zach Greinke, been a good hitter his whole career, to kind of go out on top with this whole no DH thing currently. But yeah, Robbie, who do you have if the Astros end up winning this as the MVP?
I mean, it's really tough. I mean, I'd probably go with Kyle Tucker for sure. But, hey, I'm going to mix it up. Somebody that not many people are talking about. How about Yuli Gurriel hitting .333 in the series?
Okay.
I mean, I know he only has 2 RBIs, and he hasn't really done anything that big. But, hey, he's getting on base, and he's been, coming up with plenty of hits. So I think that's a good thing for the Astros. But if I had to pick, I would go with Kyle Tucker or Michael Brantley. Brantley, to me, is a bit of a longer shot, though, because he hasn't really had the big hit like Tucker has had. But honestly, I think that whoever wins the World Series MVP for the Astros, because the Astros are going to win this series, like I predicted, whoever comes up with the big hit in the last 2 games is going to win World Series MVP. The last 2 games will determine who it is for the Astros.
Robbie, this is our last chance to be right about something this postseason.
You know what? I am right about this.
You're right about this?
The Astros are going to win the World Series.
Okay.
They're going to come. They're playing in Minute Maid Park. Ted Cruz is there, and they're going to win the games.
All right. Well, we will have to see if that is the case. Like I said, the last chance for me and Robbie here, who haven't gotten a single prediction right. But we'll see. Anything's possible.
It may or may not be the reverse psychology that I'm trying to implement again.
Of course. Because you desperately want the Astros to win, don't you?
I desperately want the Astros to win, exactly.
You love them so much. One of your favorite teams, I know. Absolutely no bad blood there at all.
I think every baseball fan except for the Astros and maybe Andrew are rooting for the Braves in the series. I don't think anybody else can say that they're rooting for the Astros. I mean, how can you?
Well, like I said, it's a lesser of 2 evils when you're a fan of an NL East team and you're also a serious baseball fan. Because if you're a fan of an NL East team, you don't want to root for the Braves. The Braves have kicked your butt for the last 4 years and won the division. And you don't want to root for the Astros because they're a bunch of cheaters. So what do you do?
Well, here's the thing. Okay, I mean,
that's like saying, would you rather root for the Red Sox or Astros?
I did have to make that decision.
I
did have to make that decision.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I think
you didn't root for the Red Sox. You specifically told me, of course I'm rooting for the Astros.
I think the Red Sox-Yankees rivalry is a lot different than the Phillies and the Braves rivalry.
Okay, well, obviously, we're talking about the greatest rivalry in sports history.
Let's go back to who we were rooting for, okay? Honestly, am I pissed off that the Astros cheated against the Yankees? Of course I am. But honestly, I think most baseball teams cheat. I'm low-key kind of over it. This was 4 years ago. It's like, honestly, I think baseball fans just need to appreciate the World Series and stop harping on the past because this is a good series. I don't think anybody's cheating in the series. I think it's a lot of fun if you just appreciate it.
I mean, I agree. To a certain extent, you just got to do that. And I do agree that there's probably a lot more cheating going on that whether or not we know about it, whether it be sign stealing, whether it be how easy it appears to be to use performance-enhancing drugs at times, whatever it is, there's definitely something going on. I mean, we know the Astros weren't the only team doing it. I mean, we may only know a few of them, but there's a good chance it was a lot more. But I also don't think it's fair to blame this and hate this particular group of players because while a lot of them were there in 2019, this is a different team, and this team earned this.
There's only 4 guys from the 17, or 5 guys, 4 or 5 guys from the 17 team that are here now.
And these guys earned this. They got here and they worked their butts off.
Yeah, whether they cheated in 17 or not, this whole team earned it without cheating.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So, question for both of you guys.
Of course.
If the Braves or the Astros were to lose the series, what would you say the biggest reason why they lost the series was?
I mean, if the Braves lose this, I got to go back to what James said. The Astros have seen the Braves bullpen so much.
Yeah, I would say turning too many games into bullpen games and allowing the Astros to get familiar with their bullpen. Because, I understand, I understood why Snitker was pulling Anderson in Game 3, but he was throwing a no-hitter. He was only at 76 pitches. Yes, they needed to try to get an offensive spark. Yes, they didn't want Anderson to see the order for a 3rd time, but it's like, if you continually trot the same guys out, it's the same thing that happened with Tampa Bay and the Dodgers last year. The Dodgers continually saw Nick Anderson, so when they pulled him for Snell in Game 6, you knew it was ball game over at that point with the way Snell was dealing. I think you should have let Anderson continue to go, Ian Anderson continue to go in this game until, obviously, he started to get rattled around a little bit, and then you bring in the bullpen when you absolutely have to. So I think I would go back to lack of starting pitching depth with Morton's injury and the Astros seeing Atlanta's bullpen too many times. Now, at least for me, if Houston were to lose this series, I would say lack of production from the stars, mainly Bregman and Alvarez. Kyle Tucker arguably the most underrated player in the game, especially with the season he's turned in and the postseason he's turned in. But besides Tucker and Correa, there really hasn't been a lot of production. Brantley is hitting 300 in the series. He only has 1 RBI. He's not. Yes, I know he's a number 2 hitter. He's a table setter, but he's not necessarily, producing, the big moments. I would say it goes back to the stars not producing for Houston, mainly Bregman and Alvarez.
I'd agree with that for the Astros as well. I mean, we agreed on the Braves reason as well, but if the Astros end up not winning this, those stars, they just didn't produce. The offense in general just didn't produce when they needed it. You have a couple guys hitting 300, but no one was doing that with runners in scoring position. No one was doing that when they needed it most. I want to go back, of course, to think about game, I think it was 4, where they got the bases loaded in the first inning and didn't get, and they got 1.
Game 3.
It was game 3. It was game 3. I thought that was game 4.
It was game 3 because there wasn't a ball out of the infield and a hit.
That's right. You know what? You're right. Yep. And they got 1 run out of that.
No. That was
game 4. Yeah, I'm not going crazy here.
Yeah,
that was game 4 where they load the bases, they get the 1 on the infield dribbler, and that was it. That was the only thing they got. And and that's a game that they lost. What was it? 3-2 final score.
3-2, yeah.
And that's, hey, you maybe get a couple more runs there in the first inning. That is the game, and they absolutely squandered that opportunity. And it's going to be things like that. The Astros didn't come up when they needed to most. But I have a good feeling, like Robbie said, they're in Minute Maid Park. They got the fans behind them. They've been in this situation before. I think they're going to end up forcing the Game 7, And honestly, as a baseball fan, putting aside my hatred for both these teams, I just love Game 7s. The Game 7s that we have had in the World Series over the past couple of years have been tremendous. And honestly, I just think it's good for baseball when you have a Game 7 because there's just nothing more exciting, more high stakes than a World Series Game 7.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything both of you guys said. I think another thing that could blame, if the Astros were to lose is the starting pitching's been very inconsistent. I mean, they've had some good games and some bad games. So you look at some of the games like where Jose Urquidy was just terrible in Game 1, and then, you look at other games too, and they have had good games. Zach Greinke threw 4 shutout innings the other day, but nevertheless, the starting pitching's been a little bit inconsistent. I think the bullpen's been pretty fine, though, for the Astros in the series. I haven't noticed too many concerns for them. For the Braves, it's definitely been... They've used the same pitchers over and over and over again, it seems like. And I understand it's kind of a tough situation, especially because the Charlie Morton injury happened and they don't have much starting pitching depth. But to me, I think that would be the biggest reason as to why the Braves were to lose the series because they're throwing like relievers out there to start the game. If Charlie Morton's out there, you don't need to do that. So I think the injury would just really hurt them. So that would be the biggest reason why I think both teams would lose at the series.
Absolutely. Of course, reminder, if you want to call in at all to talk about the World Series or anything baseball related tonight, that number's 202-319-5106, 202-319-5106. Guys, got a question for you, right?
Sorry.
Go ahead, James.
No,
yeah.
One more thing about, Houston Stars not producing.
Yes.
Credit to Atlanta's pitching, i.e. their bullpen, for shutting them down for this long. And if they continue to not hit, credit to Max Fried tonight and whoever shuts them down. The best performance has obviously been Ian Anderson's, but collectively, besides Game 5, Atlanta has pitched well in this series. They had the bad outing from Fried in Game 2, the bad couple innings in Game 5, but outside of those isolated stretches, because it was really 1 inning in Game 2 for Fried, they pitched well on the whole.
Without question. So, I'm going to ask you guys, right? This is something that I've noticed here, right? So they've been in the World Series 3 times in the past 5 years, okay?
And all five to ALCS.
Yes, of course. Yeah, they and they've been the ALCS each time as well over the past 5 years. But here's my question, right? The one time they lost the World Series, and now this time when they're on the brink of losing it, if they don't come back and win as well, against the NL East teams, right? Underdog NL East teams. Is this their kryptonite? I mean, they took care of the Dodgers, but you want to think about a Nationals team that was dead at May and just barely won the wild card game, and an Atlanta Braves team now that, was not projected to go anywhere once they won the division. Like we said, it was universally agreed, hey, whoever wins the NL East, they're supposed to be eliminated in the first round by the Brewers, and this is 2 times now. If they don't get it done, I feel like that's something serious you got to think about.
Baseball is a game of streaks. You got to get hot at the right time, and that's why I had the Yankees winning the World Series this year, because I thought that this was the most inconsistent team in baseball, and I thought that they were going to pick it up at the perfect time. But as Andrew said, you look at the Washington Nationals, you look at this Atlanta Braves team. They may have been mediocre to solid teams in the regular season, but the fact of the matter is they just got really hot once the playoffs begun. And you look at the teams that both of those teams beat. They beat the Dodgers. Both those teams beat the Dodgers. Those Dodger teams were still really good. This Dodger team won 102 games this past year, and when the Nationals beat them, how many games did the Dodgers win?
They won over 100.
106?
Yeah.
In 19,
it was 2019.
In 2019?
Yeah.
So to say that they've lost to NL East teams, I don't think that should be, an indictment as to the Houston Astros, just because the teams are just really hot at the right time, and that's all baseball is. You just got to get really hot at the right time.
I don't think that's all baseball is, though. I think that's all the postseason has become.
Right, but and I would say this about the Nationals in 19. They were 19-31, after May 23rd. From May 24th on, if they had played the entirety of the 162 regular game season on their pace from May 24th, they would have been on a 107 win pace, just like that Astros team. They, both them and the Astros had 84 wins from May 24th until Game 7 of the World Series. So I don't think 19 was not a case of the Nationals just getting hot. That Nationals team was a damn good team. Like they were on that 107 win pace from May 24th on. So they didn't catch lightning in a bottle. They had Scherzer, Strasburg won World Series MVP, Soto, Trey Turner. I mean, Rendon. The list goes on for about how many stars they had. That wasn't a team that was mediocre and got lucky. That was a team that was legitimately good. They took a while to get going. They only won 92 games in the regular season, but that was a legitimately good team. I would think I don't think that Nationals team gets enough credit in terms of from the public, because going into that World Series, they were the biggest World Series underdogs in 12 years, dating back to the 07 Rockies, which didn't make any sense because that Nationals team, I think we could go through some of the other World Series teams before them. They were better than some of those teams that played against them. So I don't think that had anything to do with that. I think the Nationals probably would have beaten anyone. I think it was just they were a team of destiny. This year, yes, the Braves were on a 105 win pace from August 6th on, but they are getting hot. But I think it's more just about lack of execution and big moments for the Astros. I think that's what it comes down to.
Going back to my original comment, though, about getting hot at the right time, how about getting cold at the worst time? You look at, the Tampa Bay Rays this past year. The last month of the season, they really weren't that great. They lost a lot of big games against the Blue Jays, and they lost a few games against the Red Sox, and they lost a game against the Yankees. So that's just another example. And then you look at what happened as an end result of that. You lose in the first round because you're struggling towards the end of the season. And baseball's just a time of it's all about getting hot at the right time. And if you get cold at the wrong time, like the Rays did at the end of the season, that's going to hurt you. So I think that's a big reason as to why the Rays lost in the first round.
But again, though, I don't think baseball is getting hot at the right time. I think the postseason structure as it is now is all about getting hot at the right time.
Well, you have to make the postseason, obviously.
Right, but that's why, and I'm going to, be the devil's advocate here, right, for a second. There's a lot of people that are like, hey, we play 162 games for a reason, and then we get down to the postseason, and you just have some wild card team that gets hot that ends up making the World Series, and there's a lot of people that don't like that. So I don't think baseball is about getting hot at the right time. I think the postseason structure as it is now allows a hot team to win a World Series. Because if you think about it, if you go back to how it was before, where the two best teams in each league played each other in the 70s or 80s, the Braves wouldn't have even been in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm of course I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but there's a legitimate argument to be made there.
I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that though. Like, I agree, the postseason about getting hot at the right time, but my main point is you have to make the postseason to begin with. That's why the Nationals and the Braves are able to make the World Series, just because they've gotten so hot, and that's why the Rays lost in the first round this past year, because they went into the playoffs just on a slump. I think the Red Sox ended the season off pretty hot too, didn't they?
Well, they swept
sweeping the Nationals,
yeah.
And then they got hot against the Yankees and the Rays, and then the offense went cold at the worst possible time. But yes, that's part of baseball, being hot at the right time. Like, you can be the best team, from April 1st until September 25th, but if you're cold that last week of the season and it carries into the postseason, that could be your season. But I mean, that's not an excuse. Like, you have to perform at the right time. There's no, you can't discredit some 90 win team for just getting hot and beating the best, because if you're going to beat a 105 win team, it's going to take a lot. It's not just about being hot. It's going to take your best effort all 4 or 5 of those games.
Yeah, and I will admit, though, like, there are obviously certain exceptions. Like, you look at the St. Louis Cardinals losing to the Los Angeles Dodgers this past year. The Cardinals were probably the hottest team in baseball in the second half of the year, and then, you lose a game against the Dodgers. But you saw how well they played against them. Like,
yeah.
Things just have to go your way at the right time.
So we've had a lot of great Game 7s, a lot of great series over the past, 10 years, I'd say. We didn't really get a chance to talk about kind of a wrap-up of the 2010s postseason last year, as we didn't have a show in the fall. But why don't we take a second to do that here, guys? What do you think was the best World Series of the 2010s? Because we had some very good ones, and if it's okay if I start here, I got to say Cubs-Indians, because that was absolutely phenomenal in 2016.
Yeah, I would say Cubs, Indians, or Nationals, Astros.
That's probably number 2 for me, I'd say. Yeah.
I think if we didn't know anything about the cheating scandal in 17, I think Dodgers-Astros would be number one.
That's the only reason I didn't say that.
But and that's
because
what
who can forget Game 5?
That was unbelievable. I still won't forget that game. That's still one of the best games I've ever watched. Even with even though we know what went on, I still think that's one of the best. But I would say Cubs,
And the
Indians,
potential balls as well, of course.
or Nationals-Astros.
I agree with both you guys, but how about the Royals-Giants World Series in 2014?
Okay, we are actually forgetting the best one.
Are we?
Cardinals-Rangers in 2011.
Oh my gosh, that's right. That was
David Freese.
Yeah.
But the reason why I bring up that Giants-Royals World Series was because not sending, I think it was Alex Gordon home in that at Game 7, that could have changed the entire landscape of that World
Series.
Series.
The next year, so it ended up not mattering. I get what you're saying, but
at the time though, I think that was just super exciting. But honestly, you got to look back at the Cardinals and Rangers World Series. Totally forgot about that. I don't think Neftali Feliz is forgotten about. I think that has to haunt him for the rest of his life, by the way. Nelson Cruz, too.
Man.
Oh, gosh.
One out away.
People, David Freese said on Twitter the other day that somebody dressed up as him for Halloween. Nobody's dressing up as David Freese for Halloween if it wasn't for that big hit.
Correct.
Oh, well, no, of course.
Two big hits.
The
game-tying triple, and then
the home run to force
and then
Game
I
7.
think going back to then this is a pivot off your question. The best team, from I would say the 2018 Red Sox. 108,
without question.
108 regular season wins, 119 total wins, best offense in the league. They beat 200 win teams, and then the reigning NL champions in the World Series.
There hasn't been a team that has been that dominant in a very long time.
Since the 98 Yankees.
Nobody. I'm pretty sure it was by the end of April, everyone was like, they are the World Series champions. You know what I mean?
And like
it was unreal.
They've been the best team in baseball since the 98 Yankees. Like it's been a 20-year span in terms of like a season like that doesn't come along often with that much dominance and that much you knew it was special from the jump. And I think, the Astros won 107 games in 19. The Dodgers won 106 games in 19. Yes, the Red Sox won 108, so they barely edged them out, but there was something different about that team compared to those other two teams.
I would agree.
And they steamrolled two 100-win teams in the postseason. Like, they were battle-tested, and then they dusted the Dodgers in 5, and the only game they lost was that 18-inning game.
All right, let's flip it on the other end now, right? Give me the worst.
Robbie, what do you say?
You agree? You didn't give yours.
I know. I would definitely agree with the 2018 Red Sox. I mean, I remember watching a game, the Yankees-Red Sox game. I think it was like a month before the season ended, and the Yankees were fighting for they had the wild card spot. And I remember they were playing in Fenway Park, and the Yankees. I just was watching that Red Sox team. I said there's no weakness right there. I mean, you from the leadoff hitter to the last. Ian Kinsler was their number 9 hitter.
That's right.
And he was hitting everything that the Yankees.
He's the only reason why they lost that 18-inning game.
That's right. The error.
Everything was just going right. And then you look at the playoffs, they're scoring, I think it was like 22 runs against the Yankees. That Yankee team just stood no chance.
Was that the Brock Holt cycle year?
Yeah.
The only postseason cycle, Brock Holt.
So I do
Off of Andrew Romine, right? Or Austin Romine?
Austin Romine.
Austin Romine.
I would have said, honestly, that 2019 Astros team I thought would have been, a strong contender.
Yeah.
Just because, that pitching rotation, you had Justin Verlander, Garrett Cole, and Zach Greinke. But to me, it's unfair to say that just because of the cheating scandal. So
right.
I don't really want to say the Astros. You could also mention last year's Dodger team. It's just so tough.
I don't think last year's Dodger team was better than the 2018.
No, not at all.
No.
And I'm not trying to sound biased. I'm just if you look at the numbers, that Red Sox team is one of the 10 best teams in baseball history, not just of the last decade. They're one of the best teams in baseball history in terms of what they did and what they accomplished.
Well, the only reason why I bring up the Dodgers is just because the only weakness I could have thought with that Red Sox team was their bullpen. The bullpen wasn't that great
last year. They came together in the postseason. During the regular season, they were very spotty, but when they needed to they were locked down all postseason. Joe Kelly fixed the bullpen.
That's very true. What was the question you were going to ask originally?
So I'm going to ask now, what do you guys think was, of the 2010s, right? Recap them here for postseason, lore, history. Who was the worst World Series winner? Because, it's funny to talk about the best, and there's obviously great teams that win the World Series, but who do you think was the worst one? Or, you know what? You could also answer with what you think the worst series was as well.
I'll do both.
Go for it.
I think the worst overall team was the 2014 Giants. They won 88 games. They were the second wild card. And I'm not taking anything away from what they did, but if you have to rank the champions of the last 10 years, I think you rank that Giant. Besides the heroic performances from Madison Bumgarner and Pablo Sandoval,
yep,
nobody else did anything outstanding. It was a typical gritty, scrappy Giants team that won. And I think they were the worst, obviously the worst of the 3 teams that won. In terms of the worst overall series, you mean in terms of no drama or no?
I guess I would just say, some World Series are remembered better than others. For example, I remember of the 2010s, and the only reason I know this is because people have said this to me who aren't Phillies fans. A lot of people said, if you're not Phillies or Rays fans, they didn't even watch 2008. It didn't mean anything.
Right. I mean, I would say Probably the 2010 World Series, the 2010 World Series, the 2012 World Series. Both those have the Giants in common. Or I'm just throwing, probably one of those two, because even in 15, those games were close. I know it was a 5-game series. Those games were close. So probably either 10 or 12.
I was seeing the 2012 series was the worst.
Yeah.
The Giants swept the Detroit Tigers that year.
That series should have been a better series.
It should have been a better
Tigers
series.
were great that year.
I think their problem was they had a week off before the World Series. They got cold at the wrong time.
You know what?
Hey, getting hot. That's what you just said.
And the Giants played till Game 7, so they only had, I think, 2 days off before the World Series.
That's right.
Honestly, also, I think if the Yankees were to have ever made the World Series in the 2010s, that was the year.
14?
12.
Oh, 12, my bad. Yeah.
Because they lost to the Tigers in the most infuriating way, okay?
Yeah.
Nick Swisher threw out...
Didn't they get swept?
No. It was 6 games.
The Tigers in 12?
No.
I am 99% sure the Tigers swept.
You can look back at, but there was a call in Game 3 of that series. Nick Swisher had Omar Infante out. He was hosed by a mile, and the umpire blew it, and that was before the instant replay. So I think that changed the entire landscape of the series.
The Tigers swept the Yankees.
But if the Yankees win that game, I guarantee you things are completely different.
Sure.
So I'm not letting up on that one, because that was Curtis Granderson's year. That was a big year for the Yankees. But
all right, so what do you think? Worst team and worst series? Do you agree?
I mean, worst series, I'm still staying the 2012 Giants-Tigers series, just because the Tigers got swept, and it was just so, I don't know. Also, I'm going to be honest, I didn't think the 2015 World Series was that good. You had the Royals and the Mets.
Yeah, but like James said, those games were close. You had the Hosmer play.
Yeah, the Hosmer playing game. That's going to be remembered forever. That was in Game 1 went into 12 innings with Gordon tying it, and then Hosmer with the walk-off sac fly. Game 3, if Murphy doesn't make that error, there was a lot of high drama in that series. Yes, Kansas City won 4-1 pretty convincingly, but besides Game 5, most of the games were close. We had a lot of drama involved.
Well, I know. I'm just trying to bring in other World Series I thought weren't that good, but also you look at Lucas Duda's throw to home plate. I think that's another good one to look at.
That's a great one.
You talking about on Hosmer's play?
I think it was.
The Hosmer. Yeah, I'm just talking about the Lucas Duda. But if I had to look at the worst World Series team, that's a really tough
winner.
World Series winner. Sorry, that's a really tough question to ask, and I mean it's so tough. If I had to pick, I think the 2010 Giants. That's a good decision. Honestly,
I think it has to be one of the Giants teams.
It has to be one of the
but
Giants.
I don't think it's the 12 Giants team. That might be the worst series, but I think they were the Giants' best overall team.
Yeah. 14, I'd say.
What about
14 was the Scudero year, right?
No, that was 12.
12.
Okay, never mind.
But what about, the Washington Nationals when they won the World Series? I don't know.
No.
They were wild. I'm just trying to come up with new teams. That's the thing.
The only reason I would say no to them is because of just that three-headed monster they had at their rotation.
But it's only because of that slow start. Because from May 24th on, they were on a 107 win pace. So yes, obviously you have to play the full season, but when you look at their large body of work, they won the World Series. They were on that pace for so long. There's no way they were not that bad of a team. They just got off to a bad start. And sometimes good teams go through bad stretches. They just go through it sometimes in August or July, so you don't notice it as much in terms of the overall standing. And
you guys remember the 2019 Dodgers when they had that absolutely abysmal month?
Yeah, 2017.
I'm sorry, 2017 Dodgers.
They lost 11 games in a row twice.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
They still won 105 games.
It does. It just happens. That just came to my mind because I remember everyone forever was just talking about just how horrible the Dodgers have been, and overall it didn't matter.
No, right. That's my point with the Nationals. They had a rough start, but
it was at the beginning of the season,
they were a legitimately good team that just got off to that bad start.
That's fair.
Well, so also when we ask who's the worst team, are we saying that on paper or just record-wise? Because I think that's a completely different argument.
Because on paper, you'd almost have to say.
Because on paper,
the 2011 Cardinals.
That's
maybe?
what I'm saying. Yeah, they got to be up there. Also, on paper, most people don't remember many players on that Rays team last year in the World Series.
Right, but they didn't win. Oh, but you're saying okay.
On paper, I'm saying if you look,
it was a good team though.
It was a very good team, but you look at the team on paper and you're like,
oh come on, John Curtis isn't a household name.
Come on now, it was. I don't know. Most of the relievers, most baseball fans wouldn't know. Most baseball fans also don't know. Pete Fairbanks as an example.
Leave Pete Fairbanks alone. He's a great guy, great pitcher. No, I know what you're saying though. Absolutely, and that we were talking about winners, but yeah, you make a good point. Still love to see, wonder what would have happened with that series if Blake Snell doesn't come out. Unfortunately, not something you can do with baseball. Quick reminder, if you want to call in the last, we're going to say 15 minutes here, end a little early for World Series Game 6. That number is 202-319-5106, 5106.
Now another question for the 2010s.
Go for it.
If you're going to say something, go ahead.
I was going to say, I had a question too, but let's hear yours.
Let's go with James' question. He's the birthday boy,
Who was the best team of the 2010s that did not make the World Series, or that did not win? Okay, we can say did not win the World Series because it could be a team that lost in the World Series, but either the team that did not make just the best team that didn't win the World Series.
Do you mind if I start?
Yes, and I'm going to agree. I'm going to agree with your answer.
2011 Philadelphia Phillies.
Okay, we all agree it's the 2011 Phillies. Let's go. Besides, we can get into the 2011 Phillies.
Oh,
after.
besides. Okay,
Besides
so wait a minute. So we're allowed to talk about the greatest team.
No, I'm saying we're getting into them after.
Oh, we're gonna get into them after.
Yes. That's
then
what I
fine.
said.
Other than them, I would probably. Is it not to win a World Series or not to make?
Not to win.
Oh man, probably I'd say the 2019 Astros. I know cheating, but still. That was a very, very good baseball team. That had two guys with 300-plus strikeouts, plus Zach Greinke at the when they got Zach Greinke at that deadline, I was like, it's over. Like, forget it. This team doesn't have a weakness. That was your Michael Brantley went off. Everyone went off. Bregman had that ridiculous year. That was a really, really good team. I still think, cheating aside, there was no excuse for them not to win that World Series. Robbie?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I'm trying to think of a team that didn't make the World Series besides that 2011 Phillies team.
It doesn't have to be a team that lost in the World Series.
Right. So, I mean, it's such a tough question. I mean,
it's almost because you forget about them. You know what
exactly.
I mean?
And honestly, like I could be a little bit biased and say a team like the 2011 Yankees or 2012 Yankees, because I know that they didn't look good against the Tigers in that series, but that team on paper was so good. But
I'd argue it might be those Tigers as well. That again, you got to remember the rotation on that 2012 Tigers. We're talking Verlander, Scherzer, Pfister.
Did they David Price that year?
No, yeah. But still, they had some very solid arms in that rotation and could not get it done. I mean, like I said, you have two Hall of Famers in that rotation, plus Pfister had a great year.
I mean, honestly, I think it could also be the 2014 Tigers. I mean, you look at 2012 and 14 because that Tigers rotation, you had Verlander, Scherzer, Price, Doug Fister, and you look at the lineup. You had a triple crown.
Anibal Sanchez was on that one, right?
You had a triple crown winner, Miguel Cabrera. You had a really good DH in Victor Martinez. You had Prince Fielder who hit 328. You had Omar Infante who could really hit. Who could hit well. Jose Iglesias for some reason was hitting so well for the Tigers when he got traded there. That Tigers team was loaded. And I think that honestly, the only issue with that Tigers team was their bullpen. They were relying on Al Albuquerque. They were relying on Phil Koch in the bullpen.
Valverde as well, right? Or was he gone by
I don't
then?
think they had Valverde that year.
He was gone by then?
It was Phil Koch was.
They had him.
Yeah, they had him. He just wasn't good anymore, right?
His good year was 11.
I remember
Phil Koch.
Phil Koch sent them to the World Series that year. The point that I'm making is if it weren't for the bullpen, there's no reasons why that Tigers team shouldn't have won the World Series. Rotation was great and the lineup was great. That's my pick.
I would say if it's not the 2011 Phillies, either the 19 Astros or the 17 Dodgers. I would say it's one of those two teams. Those are two of the better teams that we've seen, especially this last decade, and they didn't get the job done. But now, going back to the 2011 Phillies, they are clearly the best team probably over the last 20 years. Since the 2001 Seattle Mariners that has not won a World Series or let alone even make it. That team was let's let Andrew take it over.
I was going to say, I mean, that team just, if you want to think about, and this might be more heightened since I was right in the middle of it, but a team that was expected to make the World Series from day one and also win the World Series and just didn't. I mean, I can't think of another than the 2011 Phillies. You had the greatest rotation of all time. Some say, of course, there's some debate about that. Roy Halladay, Cliff Lee, Roy Oswalt, Cole Hamels, Vance Worley, third place Rookie of the Year finalist that year.
Starter, right?
He was.
I can't believe that Vance Worley had a 3.01 ERA from that year, and then
it was 10-2 as well.
Yeah, 10-2, and it seemed like he disappeared almost.
Well, he was actually traded for Ben Revere. I don't know if you knew that,
really?
But yeah, he was traded for Ben Revere to the Twins. But anyway, no, that team, right, and that pitching alone, that probably would have got them there. Ryan Madsen had a breakout year. He was their closer. He had veterans like Jose Contreras who stepped up in big moments.
Antonio Bastardo.
Antonio Bastardo and Michael Stutz, two names that were huge out of the bullpen this year. Both of those guys were young guys, lost gas as the season went on, which really contributed to, of course, their downfall and losing to the Cardinals in the NLDS. But then the offense. I mean, you're talking right in the middle of the prime of the core of that team that won the 2008 World Series. Utley, Howard, Rollins, got Hunter Pence at the deadline there. Raul Bañez had a huge year. I can't think of another team, and of course it hurts even more because that's the last time I saw postseason baseball, but I can't think of another team that should have at least made a World Series more than that 2011 Phillies
They definitely
team.
should have. They were the best team since the 2001 Mariners to have not won the World Series. If Ryan Howard doesn't tear his ACL, maybe they finish it in 12 or 13. But yeah, I mean that was clear. That team was unbelievable. Halladay, Lee.
You remember Game 5 as well, right?
Yes, 1-0. Chris Carpenter.
1-0.
The list goes on. Halladay, Lee, Oswalt. Who am I forgetting? in the rotation.
Cole Hamels.
Cole Hamels, of course.
And Vance Worley.
And
don't forget, what's his face as well, who was supposed to be number 5, Joe Blanton, who came back.
Yeah, Joe Blanton.
Oh my
And
God.
then offensively, I mean, you have Jay Roll, you have Chase Utley, Ryan Howard, you have everyone. That was the best Phillies team.
100
They
pounds.
just didn't get the job done, unfortunately.
Carlos Ruiz, all of them, man. It was a good team. It was a great team. It was the best team in baseball, without a question. The best team to not make a World Series since those 2001 Mariners, who, by the way, also were eliminated in the first round, if I am not mistaken. Were they? I think they were eliminated. Were they eliminated by the A's?
Yes.
They were eliminated by the A's.
Yeah, they were
Or the
eliminated by the-
Yankees.
No, it was the A's.
It was the A's. Yeah, that's what I thought.
No, it's
No, I
the
think it was
Phillies.
the Yankees.
Was it the Yankees? I don't.
Yeah, 2001. I mean, I
Honestly,
wasn't watching a whole lot of baseball back then, unfortunately.
Andrew and James are right. The 2011 Phillies are the best. Were the best team not to, win the World Series. But I think it was so ridiculous is that them just not being able to win it. And then I just am amazed that Roy Halladay went from being that great to being off. He was
That
out
was
of the
his
league in
last
2 years.
great year.
Yeah, because 2 years later he's out of the league. I mean, he just fell so quickly. I'd never seen anything like it.
And shortly after him, Cliff Lee as well. Not forget, I think it was about a year after him.
Cliff Lee actually never was really bad. He was just always hurt. The last year Cliff Lee pitched in baseball, he had a 3.46 ERA.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
The 01 Mariners were eliminated by the Yankees in the ALCS.
Okay,
In
so it was the
ALCS.
Yankees. It was the Yankees.
Well-
So never mind. They made the second round.
Okay, but honestly, I do think that Mariners team was better than the Phillies, though. Would you agree with that?
That Mariners team's won more games than anyone in history, so
baseball
I would say
Yeah.
so, yes. That was a very good team.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that there's been a lot of changes in baseball, though, like the way that the style has just changed. I think that, you look at that Phillies team, I just still can't believe they didn't win that series. I mean, come on, they were so good, and I'm still at a loss of words that they lost in that
Do you
series.
remember the only reason that series went 5 games as well? Because of a pinch hit 3-run home run by Ben Francisco in St. Louis. That's the only reason it went to a 5th game. The offense in Game 1 scored 10 runs, and I was there standing in right field. And after that, they forgot how to hit. I'm sorry, actually, they knew how to hit in Game 2, but Cliff Lee forgot how to pitch and gave up 5 unanswered runs.
Correct me if was he bad the entire? I thought he just had one bad inning though. I don't remember it that well
Didn't
though.
he come back in Game 5 and pitch?
I don't think
No,
Roy
he had
Halladay
pitched-
had a
it was
complete
Roy
game
Halladay,
loss.
that's right.
Yeah, it was Roy Halladay.
Roy Halladay pitched Game 1 and 5. Lee
By
pitched
the
Game
way-
2 and was horrible.
Honestly, the most angry I've ever been in sports, though, was definitely Cliff Lee not signing with the Yankees in 2009 or 2011, rather.
You know what? That's funny. I want to actually have that conversation in the offseason because I wanted to delve into a little more of our own personal memories, give it a little bit of a spin here.
Well,
when it comes
now
to
you guys-
baseball. I know that's a good story, so I want to come back to that
Oh, yeah.
story.
Now you guys have a little bit of a teaser as to the worst memory I ever had in baseball.
Because here's the thing about that story. It is Robbie's worst, and it is one of my not only greatest but most vivid memories of the day that he
Yeah,
finally signed.
it's mine too. I remember my dad woke me up and told me, by the
Hey,
way,
we'll
Cliff
get
Lee
into it.
signed.
We'll
We'll
get
get
into
into it in the offseason, but that was terrible.
No. We're definitely going to get into some more of that in the offseason along with the free agent and trade talk. But you know what? We got about 5 minutes left here in the show before we end for World Series Game 6. Final thoughts, World Series Game 6. What do we think's going on? Will there be a Game 7, James?
It's all about momentum. It's all about getting the job done. I say Atlanta wins tonight 7-5, and they clinch their first World Series title since 1995.
Wow.
Austin Reilly gets World Series MVP.
Well, there you go. Robbie, I'd like to hear what you think so that we know what's not going to happen.
Astros are winning 3-1.
There will be a Game 7?
There will be a Game 7.
Okay.
The Houston Astros are going to win, and then they are going to win in Game 7
Okay.
by a final score
Oh, we got final scores, too.
of 6-1.
Wow. Who's the MVP?
You know who it is already.
Do I?
It's going to be Yuli Gurriel.
All right,
He's
it's gonna
coming
be-
up with the big hits. I'm telling you,
In
Yuli
both
Gurriel.
games?
Both games. He's
Okay.
going to have big hits.
Okay.
Both games, he will have big hits, and the Astros will win the World Series. And then Carlos Correa is going to leave, and people are going to call them a dynasty, even though they're not a dynasty.
Whoa.
And that's what's going to happen. That's my World Series pick.
All right, fine. You know what? I'm going to try a little bit of a Robbie Cruz move here. I think it goes 7 games, right? I think it just absolutely has to. I think the Astros have a little bit of momentum right now. There's going to be at least 7. Man, this hurts to say. I'm going to say Braves in 7. MVP. It might be not Minter. I'm sorry. Matzik was the one who's
Matzik, yeah.
It might be Matzik. But if I had to go with a hitter, I'm going to say Jorge Soler has another huge home run. So Braves in 7, Soler MVP. That's what I'm going with.
See, this is a messy situation because we've had a lot of very similar predictions. So
This is the first time I think that one of us is going to be right?
someone.
We both picked different teams.
Unless
To be fair,
the
though,
Braves, unless the Braves win tonight,
Then
if
only
the
James
Braves,
is right.
Then only James is right.
Yeah. All right.
I was the
well,
only one who picked the Braves coming into the series, so no matter if the Braves win, I'm right no matter what.
that's true.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
true. You know what? There's nothing that can be said at this point. At least, hopefully, one of us is right here, right? Save us for this last little bit here of the 2021 postseason. But that's something we'll have to wait until next week to see. Our first show in off-season baseball. We'll be talking about qualifying offers for sure. That's going to be a big thing coming off of the World Series, getting into all the rumors, and maybe some time for some personal stories as we get further into the offseason. But as for tonight, that's going to conclude this edition of Nation's Pastime in the nation's capital. Again, please follow us on our Instagram and Twitter at NatPastimeCap for all of the show updates. Our shows will be posted in podcast form on YouTube. Definitely the next day after. Spotify will keep you posted. That's out of our hands right now, unfortunately. But thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be live again next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. I've been your host, Andrew Snaith, here with my co-host James Higgins and Robbie Cruz. Have a fantastic night and enjoy World Series Game 6 and possibly 7.
Peace out.